from what I've gathered listening to your show, I kind of feel like you and I have a little bit of a similar upbringing, when it comes to like religion and spirituality, because I was raised in a fundamentalist Christian belief system.
Right.
And
I'm sorry.
you have such a broad depth of topics that you go into. I'm just curious, like at what point in your life did you kind of start to question that worldview, of the fundamentalist Christian?
Very early.
Yeah.
I mean, I was considered a problem growing up in church.
Really?
And it was like we had 1,500, 2,000 people, but I would be, doing my little thing at 12 years old, and asking questions, and not that they were avoiding answering questions because they didn't know or didn't want to. I just don't think they knew how to deal with me. Because I would ask questions that were fairly deep and that made connections. I'm not sure that everybody did make those connections. So I learned to be kind of demure about it.
Right, yeah.
Until later when I became even more of a problem, but then that's another story.
Yeah, I mean, your podcast is so unique. I mean, you talk about things that I just don't hear about a lot, that just aren't talked about. Things like, what happens when we die, reincarnation, loving one another. And one of my favorite topics, meditation. What do you think it was that led you down this path?
I was about 9 years old, and I was kind of a daredevil, and I went to one of my best friend's house. We were in Southern California, so of course they had a pool. And I slid down the slide into the water, and as soon as I ended up in the water, I realized I didn't know how to swim. I didn't even think about it. So I remember the entire thing. I went up, tried to get out of the water 2-3 times. On the third time, I remember thinking, wow, it's really true that if you see somebody coming up 3 times, you're not going to see them a 4th
Oh, really?
time, because that's when their brain gives up. And my brain gave up. So I started sinking down. And I was just looking straight up because I was going down to the bottom of the pool. And I remember thinking how beautiful that was, because the sunshine was coming through and the bubbles were leaving my mouth, right? But they were floating up and they were just glistening on the way up. And I thought, wow, how beautiful is that? And I became so calm and peaceful.
Oh, wow.
And then somebody jumped in and pulled me out a few seconds later, and I almost regretted that they did that.
Really?
Because that moment of transition was right there. And I had accepted it completely. I knew how beautiful and calm it was. It was pretty scary up to the point of acceptance.
Yeah.
But once I accepted it, it was just the most beautiful thing.
Wow.
So of course I realized that there's something more to what people say, to what I'm hearing. Because we went to church 4 days a week, four times a week, 3 days a week. So we were hearing a lot of stuff, and I was listening, and trying to put, stories together that I wanted to believe it, but I couldn't figure out how that worked. This says this over here, So it was just, I think, a natural thing for me, and I accepted my death throughout my lifetime, I think 3 times at least. So each time, another time I was going over a cliff backwards in my car at the middle of the night in Austin, Texas.
Oh, wow. Right here in my hometown.
All right, in your hometown. I was on my way up to Lake Travis.
Okay.
And I lived on the lake, and I was working downtown at a nightclub downtown. So it was after that we shut it down. I was headed home, and I fell asleep. And I had one of those outrageously big Jeeps with too big of tires. And so it caught the edge of the road, and I tried to overcorrect. And I spun out. And I went backwards over the cliff. And it was the most peaceful thing again.
Wow.
And
really?
it stopped so slowly, I thought I'd been killed. I thought, well, that was easy. And I was just sitting there. It wasn't moving anymore. And I was looking straight up because I was hanging on the edge of the cliff. You know how they are over there with all the cedar trees on the side.
Oh, yeah, especially around Lake Travis.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I just thought a branch must have come in and hit me in the head and killed me instantly or something because it was so peaceful. And I was just sitting there looking up and I could see the stars. I was there for about 15, 20 seconds and I thought, I don't think I'm dead, you know. I'm like, so I still had the car and drive. So I just pushed the gas and I drove up and got to the top, and what happened was there was a old barbed wire fence. And one of the two pieces of barbed wire broke, but the other one was holding my entire car up on like this, up on the edge of the cliff. But I had enough traction, and then I was glad I had those big tires because then I grabbed it and I drove out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then very quickly, the third time was just about 10 or 12 years ago. I had the pneumonia, and I was they induced a coma. And for 2 days, the only thing I asked of myself for the rest of my life was just take one more breath. That's all you have to do. You don't have to take two, just take one. And so when your brain gets to that point, that the only thing that's important is a single breath, what else is there that's important? There's nothing beyond that.
Yeah.
And so that was the third time, and I think that was the final brain reset. And I thought, wow, as important as everything is in the world, none of it really matters. The only thing that matters are people and relationships and interaction with people. So I began kind of getting rid of everything and ultimately moved to Hawaii, and it changed everything. So.
Wow, that's so. Each time you had sort of these near-death experiences, would you say it sort of changed the chemistry of your brain at that point? Is that kind of what you were saying, that it changed the way you thought about everything each time?
I absolutely believe that because I've done feature films and museum work has been my career, and other art. So I have sculptures and work around the world, but that aside, I've had to always do a lot of research. As an art director for films, I would have to research, and as building dioramas, I'd have to research. So I was always researching, which was kind of my brain set anyway from the very beginning, thinking and figuring stuff out, tearing radios apart when I'm a kid, that kind of stuff. So because of that analytical portion of my brain, when I have a supernatural experience, which that's a whole different lifestyle, that's a whole different thing. I've had many, many, many of those. I don't just entirely accept it for the face value. I like to think about how does that interact scientifically, you know. And so in my podcast, I try not to say too much scientifically as matter of fact, because I'm not a scientist, and I don't want people to come across and put that kind of faith in me, you know, because if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. You know, ultimately it's my philosophy, and I try to throw in science to just share my process with people. So I guess that's where it comes from.
Now, would you say that spirit guides or guardian angels saved you each one of these times?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. My grandmother told me many years ago, she said that she wouldn't, when she died, she said, don't be upset by this, but when I die, I'm not going to be your guardian angel. I don't think I could ever afford that kind of time.
Oh, that's funny.
She said, you keep your angels busy.
Yeah, I kind of wonder, you know, is there a difference between spirit guides and guardian angels?
There can be.
Okay.
Spirit guides they can be pretty much anything. They can be your higher self, you know.
Okay.
They can be your soul collective. You know, we travel with people throughout all of our lifetimes. Sometimes we are incarnated, sometimes they're incarnated, and then we act as their guides or they act as our guides. So
interesting.
So there's people that we've known for a very long time. And some of them are here on Earth with us at the same time, and some are not. So it's a huge variation. But also, traditionally when we think of angels with the large wings, Those are actually pretty much human souls that
Okay.
have achieved a higher dimension. And so when they come back, they're not simply a spirit guide, they're more of an angelic, higher vibrational being. And so our eyes in this density and third dimension, third density, the vibrations we can see, if they allow us to see them, our eyes translate that as light.
Huh. Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
that light is like looking at a rainbow.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, you talk a lot about light and how, just the significance of it. And I've heard somebody say once that, we basically see a fraction of the light that is available in our existence here. And it's sort of like, we're kind of like AM radio receivers in a HD Ultra 4K type of world.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm just curious, what the significance is of light, if that question makes any sense.
It makes total sense. There's nothing but light. Everything you see is light because everything is vibration and frequency. And if you go down to the very base of even beyond the atomic level, is a photon. And the photon was really the first thing created the second thing technically, but in the universe. And so each photon grouped and coalesced with other photons of that same vibration. And then it just exponentially grew. And then that would create gases and different materials and different densities, and they would group in different ways. And so, if anybody does any kind of science research or watch any kind of science shows at all, the space between the nucleus of an atom and the neurons and stuff it's just massive. It's mostly empty space.
Yeah.
Solid matter.
Nothing's solid.
Nothing is truly solid. And because of that, depending on the vibration of those molecules within whatever matter you're thinking of, whether it's water vapor or it's a stone, they're vibrating at a different rate. And that vibration creates solidity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that attracted me to your podcast first. I think the first one I listened to was about densities. And I was first introduced to the raw material a couple of years ago. I'm kind of a late bloomer, but it really just kind of blew me away. It was probably the most, up to that point in my life, it was the most, what I would call logical or believable version of reincarnation that I'd ever heard before.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious because they talk about, the veil of forgetting, that we had to go through in order to come here. It sounds like from some of your past episodes that you may have pierced through that veil of forgetting a little bit.
Oh, I have. I have a lot of memories. Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. I remember, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, I remember a lot of stuff. I remember other lifetimes. I remember other planets. I remember being with some of the same people in other scenarios. It's more all the time. That's part of the enlightened awakening phase in all humans, however long it takes for everybody who's going to have that experience just in their time.
Yeah.
And the more you go, the more you begin to remember past. And the reason we have to forget, the reason it's important that we forget when we're reincarnated in this earth, or technically in this density, whether it's another planet or not, but another story. The reason we have to forget is because it's an unfair advantage. We're here to learn lessons, and we're here to evolve our soul. That's the purpose of it. To grow in a spiritual way and become a higher vibrational being. And if we were to remember everything, we're not really learning those lessons. The problem being that we have the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like
playing a
fair.
video game with the cheat codes.
Yeah, you can punch them in and you won it, but where was the, really, come on. The journey is in finding that code. And and as it goes, the more an individual is evolved spiritually, and I say it when I say evolution, I don't want it to come across as saying that it's meaning someone is better than anyone else, because nobody's better than anyone else. We're all equal. We're in different levels and different parts of our journey. So the further one goes and the higher their vibration begins to grow, then they're able to access those memories. And that really starts through meditation.
Okay, that was one of the questions I had for you, is how do we connect to that? I don't know why. I know. I just want the cheat codes. I want to know
That'd be great. Right?
What happened. Where I've been before. I don't know. It in some ways, I think it might help me understand this life a little better. But maybe ignorance truly is bliss, and it's just fun to kind of go through it and figure it out.
Well, and it's not a game. I mean, it really isn't. This is us. I mean, this is our purpose. So not everybody has the attitude of wanting to come and learn lessons for their own soul evolution. Some people want, all beings want to evolve, because once they get past like this density experience, even negative entities don't want to cross certain boundaries, because they'll lose energy and polarity. They're seeking in their direction, which is a more negative direction, but they'll lose it by gaining positivity if they abridge like the free will rule, for example. If they impose something on someone, they better darn well make sure they're going to have that individual controlled through their death and after. Otherwise, whatever positivity that individual has, they will be depolarized by that degree. So there are I say rules, but they're not really rules. They're just, this is how it works, and you can either abridge it or not. It's your choice. You will lose polarity, whether it's positive or negative, but so that's where our free will comes in.
So we do have free will, because I've seen countless number of and been down countless number of YouTube rabbit holes where people make compelling arguments that we don't have free will. You say that we do.
The very first thing created in the universe, and I say created because this is a whole different thing that we won't have time for in this show to talk about, but there is a creator of the universe, and that creator thought a thought, and that thought created the photon, the Big Bang, which was the explosion of photons. The first thing set into motion was free will, so that each of those photons had the free will to group and vibrate and become what it wanted to become. Because if there wasn't a free will laid in that DNA at the very beginning, then the experiences that each individual ultimately will have won't be true. It won't be, pure.
Yeah.
So there is free will, and I think that the area that kind of becomes a little bit confusing is that before we reincarnate, we can program our life. And I say program, I'd say there's certain lessons I want to learn in this. I'm reincarnating to learn these lessons. So these are the things I want to learn. And what that does is it puts you on a direction. Now you can choose to go off of that path if you'd like. So there are things that are set in front of our path that are programmed by ourselves before we get here. But while we're here, we think, I don't want to do that anymore. You can change your program.
Huh. Oh, okay. So you can still override whatever presets you might have made prior to coming down to this level of existence.
Absolutely.
I've even heard that we pick our own parents.
We do.
Which, when I first, that was a hard pill for me to swallow. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm not gonna say much, but yes.
Yeah, that was that's a kind of an interesting concept. But once I warmed up to it, I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense actually. That I picked this because it allowed me to evolve into whatever it is I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Because who shapes us more than that?
it's interesting because sometimes we choose a set of parents
Mm-hmm.
to help them.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
I remember about 10 to 15 seconds prior to my coming to Earth and being placed in my body as I was being
Yeah.
born. I had a choice of 3 separate set of parents.
Oh, wow.
And the first set was, I was literally looking at pretty much the continental U.S. because I knew this is where I was going to come into.
Mm-hmm.
And I had 3 set of parents. And the first set, my life would be pretty posh, pretty nice, pretty good.
Yeah.
But I really didn't have a great, chance of learning the lessons I'm incarnating to learn.
Mm.
And then the second one was, you probably will learn your lessons and you'll have a great life, but you will have some difficulty. But you may not learn your lessons too. You may get distracted.
Oh.
Okay. And the third set was, you'll definitely learn what you need to learn, and life's going to suck.
So you took door number 3.
And I started laughing, and my guides were right behind me on each side. And I said, we all know which one I'm going to choose. And I closed my eyes and fell forward.
So what's that memory like of the astral plane? I mean, can you describe that in any context of language?
It looks exactly like Earth looks, and it looks
Oh,
exactly
really?
like everything here looks,
Okay.
because it's customized per the individual.
Okay.
However our brain translates certain things is how that astral realm will kind of morph to suit you. That's the huge difference between third density and beyond. Because first, second, and third density, it's all about us conforming to the density,
Right.
which is
okay.
our lesson. That's why the whole point of coming is learning how to live in this barbaric hell and then still be a light being at the end,
Yeah. Yeah.
However long that takes you to do, that's great. And you can choose your lessons along the way as you go.
Now, you mentioned that there's 8 densities. Okay.
Yeah, basically.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So, and of the 8, going from, and I know this is a way over simplification of it,
Sure.
because as I've learned from you, there's different levels within each density.
Yes.
But of the 8, humans are between 3 and 4, right?
Yes, we're currently in the middle. We're transitioning from third to fourth.
So, why? I've heard that the going between the third and the fourth density is the hardest step of all the densities. Is that true?
Yes,
And if so, why?
because your brain right now is trying to reject everything you're hearing.
Mm.
And everybody's listening, for the most part, the great majority of people will be trying, their brains, subconscious is going to try to reject it. I'm sorry, let me correct that. Your analytical mind is going to
Right,
try to
yeah.
reject it. Your subconscious knows the truth. And in that transition from us understanding and learning that there's so much more than what we see in front of us. And it's just like this is a fraction of what reality truly is. We are boxed in this tiny little box. But that acceptance and understanding and realizing that we are really and all literally part of the same being. We're just like a little tiny cell of one large being. And I know that's another difficult one to get down, but that's why we have to treat everyone exactly the way we would treated ourselves. Even people that are no good, that are negative, they're still
Yeah.
love and they're still light and they're still part of the Creator. They're just a different branch.
Huh. Yeah, that's always been a hard one for me to accept, because I have been someone that in the past addicted to anger and judgment, and didn't even know I was addicted to
Right.
it, right? And
Right.
Finally, after learning about neuroscience and how these chemicals react in our brain, it dawned on me. And so you talk about things like that, and you're helping me to be able to be friendlier to people, or not so much friendlier, but just to be more compassionate to them when I don't, when we feel feel diametrically opposed to these people,
Yeah,
and there's a
you
lot
probably
of
are.
I think of that going on right now in the world.
And it's going to be more and more. The gap between what we perceive as positive and negative is going to grow.
Mm.
Just because it's more polarizing, you know, it's like you got to pick your side, you know, because at the end, I don't know the exact date, but we have about 100 years left. And that's going to be the end of this run of opportunity for all of us to learn these lessons. That's why I'm kind of feeling so desperate to, like, please get it, please get it. You know, you don't have much time left, please get it. You know, but I also know that it's okay. They'll just have to come back later if they don't get it. But when this phase of lifetime, and I think in the religious institutions we call it the rapture. Mm-hmm. Ra calls it the harvest. In fact, sometimes in our fundamentalist belief systems we would call it the harvest also. So that's kind of why I adopted that term. At this harvesting time, since it's been a 75,000 year process, and
really?
as human beings, we're really kind of barbaric, and so we haven't gotten it. We're going to have to do the whole 75,000 years over again. But we probably won't do it on Earth, because Earth is transitioning into the fourth density as a being in of itself, because all matter has consciousness at their level, and Earth has a consciousness, and that consciousness of the Earth and the physical embodiment of that consciousness, the Earth, is evolving. It's going to be a higher vibrational place. So third density beings can't be here.
Okay.
It's not compatible. So they'll have to go into long-term storage and then reincarnate on another planet. And at the harvest time, all the positive people will be harvested by positive entities, and negative individuals will be harvested by negative entities, and they'll be incarnated on another negative planet.
Okay. So I'm glad you said that, because my interpretation of the harvest was that I've reached this level of enlightenment. They're going to take me away, and I just get to be, you know, with the Creator, back with, you know, returning to the one.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily how it goes. Is that?
It is for some people.
Okay.
If at the end of this 75,000 year period, you have increased your vibration enough that you're compatible for the fourth density, mm-hmm. You'll come back as a fourth density being and begin the lessons of the fourth density.
Okay. And so we don't always reincarnate, right?
No. The beginning of our incarnative experiences are automatic, because we have evolved from the photon, because that was the first thing that existed in the universe, and so we went up from the photon to material, to mineral, to bio animal, you know, single cells, you know, and moved up to more complex, smaller individuals and beings, up through the animal kingdom and plant kingdom, up to intelligent animals like our dogs and our cats and other animals. And then once you get that level where that animal can actually feel love for others, other than just simple survival, then they're eligible for third density, and they can come up and be the beginning of the human experience. And you have to go all the way up through that.
Yeah.
But if you can get there, and mostly it's just opening your mind. That's really literally all you have to do.
Huh.
Just open your mind and say, I know I don't have all the answers. Tell me. And it'll come.
Yeah, my ego's not going to like that. But
they don't. That's like, they're the enemy, I tell you.
Man, whenever we briefly talked about the movie Soul, the Disney flick, and when I saw it, I thought, man, they really must be listening to your podcast, because I kind of think with the reincarnation theme of the movie, and even the Jerrys, I kind of look at them as the social memory complex. Mm-hmm. Would you say that's an accurate kind of comparison?
Yeah. Absolutely. I literally help screenwriters. I have been for years.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. And somebody in the UK right now is writing their second movie, And I've been helping them with concepts and how to turn sci-fi movie into, and have truths embedded within it so that our minds begin to open and we can accept it. Star Trek, the later episodes like Picard and Discovery and
Oh, right, yeah.
some of the others that are out right now, I watch and I'm like, oh, there's so much truth in some of these shows. Truth being just, that's exactly what that entity looks like, or that's exactly what that entity does to, just concepts within different civilizations within those films. And when I watched, I was kind of embarrassed. My best friend, she was here from LA. She's a school teacher. And she's here. She comes a couple times a year and stays with me. And we watched the movie Soul, like over Christmas. I just sat there and started crying. I was like,
Oh, it's a beautiful movie.
just like boo-hooing. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much truth. I can't believe that's exactly what it is. That's it right there.
Yeah.
It looks a little different, but that's exactly what happens.
Yeah. I think it was cool the way they would put people in the astral plane when they were in a zone.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the menacing little, I forget her character's name now, but she would knock them out of the zone.
Oh, right.
When
Yeah,
the
you
guy
don't
was
belong
going
there.
up for a dunk. Do you really think there's like little things like that out there? The forces like that kind of mess with us?
There are.
Oh, wow. Okay.
There are.
So just like we have guardian angels, there's also, I guess, another side to that, right?
There is. There's an entirely, you have to begin by understanding that all things have to be in balance.
Mm.
That's what yin and yang is.
Yeah.
Perfect balance. So all good things that you see, at some degree, there's going to be something negative. Because it's like matter and antimatter. It all has to balance. And so opportunities for an individual choosing to be a negative entity have to be equal to the opportunities for people choosing to be positive. Because the universe can't make your choices. If free will is the ultimate, then everybody must choose from the same plate.
Okay. That's why we have the both sides, right?
Yes, because you can take a hammer and build a house, or you can tear it down with the same hammer. It's all about the intention of the individual and how they take that energy coming into you, and what you do with it is either becoming negative or positive. The energy is the same.
Wow, interesting. So, otherworldly beings, I would be remiss if I did not bring up aliens, because I talk about them endlessly. And you have an interesting kind of take on them. And would you say that they're all dark entities?
No.
Can we...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just curious, because some people see bright lights, other people's, it's a much more kind of dark or sinister experience.
If you refer back to when I was saying that the astral realm customizes your experience depending on your belief system, because they don't want to abridge your free will. So if you believe there's going to be an alien gray that probes you, abducts you and probes you, well, that's probably what's going to happen. Because you already know that. They can't introduce anything new. They can take what you already know and terrify you, or help you move in a positive way.
Okay.
Depends on the individual, on the entity, whether they're working for the positive or for negative.
Yeah. So yet again, it's just the outward appearance or experience that we have is just basically a reflection of what's in us, right?
It is. It is, because I don't know if you happen to listen to my episode on the electrical body. In fact, one of your episodes talked about Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Oh, yeah.
And his concepts are great.
Love him.
Yeah, that guy's great. I like that guy. So he really takes science into the metaphysics. And I totally forgot what I was going to tell you. Got distracted.
Well, we were talking about the aliens, and I think that led you down the Joe Dispenza path. About how our inward feeling or state of being basically creates the outer world.
Yes, because we are on our own vibrational level. that energy
Yeah.
coming from our personal magnetosphere, coming from our heart and our brain. So we have to stay within that vibrational phase. That's why we have to vibrationally evolve. And the more we evolve, the more is given to us, the more information and the more truths and the more memories come back. But we have to do the work.
Yeah.
We have to do the meditating. We have to do the giving of love and gratitude to all people,
Yeah.
no matter what it feels like at the moment. Because you look at every single individual, there's love in there. There's light. Because we're all light beings. We're crammed into these little tiny bodies. But we're
Yeah.
much larger and we're like brilliant and bright.
Huh.
And
Wow.
I remember before I was born into my body, at the time I was telling you I chose my parents,
Right.
the feeling I had was sheer panic in the astral realm, because I knew what it's like to come into a body. It's exactly the same feeling of being buried alive.
Oh, really?
So it's traumatic to come into a lower density being, because you're taking all of your consciousness, cutting most of the memory out and cramming it into this little hard
Oh,
shell.
wow.
I mean,
Yeah,
who wouldn't
that's-
feel panicky?
Wow, that's a powerful analogy.
You know?
And I've also heard that, like, let's say you're at a higher density in the astral plane and you do incarnate down to this third and fourth density. Do you risk being stuck? Is that
Nobody will be stuck, but
Okay.
you may have to start from that level over again if you forget, if you get
I see.
distracted,
yeah?
or you choose to change your polarity. Any negative being can become positive at any moment, and any positive being can become negative. You lose a little bit of polarity, but the option's there for you.
And so do you think that, we kind of oscillate back and forth between positive, negative, like, in other words, I mean, despite my best efforts, I know I'm going to have a day where someone's going to cut me off in traffic and I'll say something, that ordinarily I'm working on it. I feel like I try to, when I'm driving, just tell myself, I don't have enough information on that person to judge them right now. Like maybe they're on their way to, a loved one that they haven't seen in years and they just got to get there now.
Yeah.
Things like that. But I sort of feel like I've got both the dark and the light inside of me. And it's kind of which one do I feed is like which one grows.
I can tell you what I tell a lot of people that I kind of work with that ask this very same question or something similar. Each choice we make affects our polarity one way or the other. So if you envision a single line of infinity, horizontal, and in the middle of that line, a little dot is neutrality. And some people are neutral, some are positive, some are negative. So when you make a decision, imagine wherever you land on that line, you ultimately want to go all this way to be negative or all this way to be positive. So you're sliding your whole life up and down this line. So each decision you make will slide you up more positive or slide you down more negative. So this is why there is no judgment. So don't judge your decisions based on whatever happens after the decision. Look at how you're going to affect your own polarity. Where's that little slider going to land after you've made this action? You've done this thing. So that's how you can gauge your own self by looking at every single decision you do. Is this going to increase my positivity or is it going to increase my negativity?
Right, yeah.
So you can visually envision and hold yourself accountable for your polarity, but not for your actions in a judgmental way.
Right, yeah, that's the trick, isn't it? To not judge ourselves.
You have to realize that you're learning. We're all learning. This is a learning process. And then when that person in front of you cuts you off in traffic, you have to realize, they maybe don't even realize what they did.
True, yeah.
So it's all on me now. Or they're not in that same polarity place that I am. they don't
Right.
have a realization. I'll send them some love so that they can begin their journey a little sooner.
Huh. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of people feel like it's the end of times. I hear that a lot. And I heard something interesting recently. Someone described it as it's not the end of the world, but we're going through such a rapid transformation that because of our limited five senses, it feels like the world is ending.
Yeah.
Do you think that's accurate?
It is accurate. Third density is ending.
Mm.
You know, and us in this physical body, we can't live outside of third density yet because we haven't evolved enough. So yes, things are happening and will continue to happen. COVID is part of the rapture. It is like
Interesting.
a swipe of the scythe, you know,
Okay.
and it's taking this portion of the harvest with them and out of the field, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be another and another until there's none left. And I think it's about 100 years. It's going to
Okay.
be the last swipe of the sickle. But our perspective is what matters. We have to see what's happening. This isn't a negative. This is not the end of the earth. This is the beginning of a greater earth.
Mm.
This is the beginning of a greater life experience for ourselves. We have literally millions of years to live from this point on.
Wow.
We have a very long time to live, and this is a very short. This is what hell is in the Bible. We're living it. Third
Oh,
density is
interesting.
hell.
Yeah.
They just didn't
I
know
mean,
what else
that-
to call it.
Yeah. Right. Oh man, this is. I knew that we were going to have a lot to talk about, because I'll be honest. I sometimes have to listen to your episodes a few times. One that I'm currently trying to digest is the one where you talk about the difference between space-time and time-space.
That's a tough one.
That one just continues to melt my face off.
It melts
I don't
mine
know
off
that-
too. You know, I have to tell you, a lot of times this isn't my information. I just push record and start talking.
Really, you don't have any notes or
No,
anything. It's just
Nothing. I
Where
push
did you? I mean, did you acquire this knowledge? Did you study?
in meditation,
text
and my guides send me information as I speak.
Huh. And you're able to open up that sort of line of communication through meditation. You said, right?
Yes, yes. But it started when and it doesn't have to start for everybody the same way, but it started in the death experience at 9 years old. It was reinforced in the second death experience, and it was really solidified when I was prior to being in the coma, when all I wanted was a single breath. Your brain resets and says nothing matters outside of this next breath. So within this moment of a breath, what are you going to learn?
Yeah. Man, this is all so good. I'm glad that we connected, man.
Oh, me too.
I'm gonna have to have you back on because I feel like we could probably do 3 episodes.
I'm up for it if you want to. I'm all good.
Man, yeah, because I haven't even scratched the surface really of all the things, all the topics that you cover.
And I got to
So,
tell
I mean-
you, I honestly feel like my first season of the podcast is basically whatever that topic is, intro. Because you go from there, there's so much information.
Yeah.
It is just, it blows my brain, and I was given a download like 2 weeks ago of a device I'm currently building, and that's amazing, and that's another whole topic, but it's a healing device and helps balance. It's basically acupuncture without being punctured.
Oh wow.
It's pretty
That's
amazing. I'm like, how did I know to build that? I have,
Really?
I don't know where this
I'm
came
interested
from.
in that because I'll be honest, I've always wanted to do acupuncture, but the needles were sort of that's a big barrier of entry for me.
Oh yeah. I've laid there on my stomach with needles in me, and I'm like, just get them out.
So it's not relaxing. Huh?
Oh, it does not do that for me. So, but yeah, and we can talk about that another time too. But yeah, it's called Deems. I'm calling it the Deems device, the Divine Evolution Electro the Divine Evolution Electromagnetic Microsingularity Device.
Wow.
Because it focuses piezoelectric magnetic energy to a single point. And when you do that, it resets your energy centers.
Your chakras, right?
Your chakras. Yeah.
Wow.
And it helps to balance, and it goes throughout your body. So I received the information 2 weeks ago, and tomorrow another battery's, being delivered, and I can maybe get it done tomorrow or Sunday.
Wow.
But yeah.
And you're doing some really cool stuff. I mean, I had no idea about that. Just the podcast itself.
Well, it's introduced here on your show, so nobody else knows.
Well, man, that's cool. I mean, I know that Divine Evolution is on all the podcatchers out there.
Mm-hmm.
What else should people do to keep up with you? Is there any other places?
My best friends, they all say, "How do we keep up with you?" I'm like, I just ask. I don't know. From moment to moment, I'm literally, truly living moment to moment, and so I'm creating a couple of new web pages, actually. One's going to be for the device. I just created one called Light Love Media. So it's lightlovemedia.com. It's parked yet. It's not built. That's one thing I don't do. So I got to get somebody else to do that for me. But so that's an option. Of course, I'm on Buzzsprout, and my website through Buzzsprout is there, and of course Apple Podcasts, all of them. So
good deal. Well, I'll make sure to link all this stuff in the show notes, and hopefully, I know that anybody listening to my show would definitely like yours. I'm kind of the armchair quarterback of the spirituality, and I feel like you're deeper down in this path, and that's one of the reasons I love talking to you, people like yourself, because it's just I don't know, it's hard to put into words, man.
Well, I appreciate that. These are hard-won lessons. I'm 54. What? No, 53. Yeah, 53. I'm not going to push it. So I'm 53 years old, and I've learned my lessons the hard way. Yeah. And I want to share that with people. I can't enlighten anyone. They have to enlighten themselves. But my goal is just to share information. And so, I thought I have an email too. So it's divineevolutionpodcast@gmail.com. It's easy. So if anybody wants, please send me questions. If you have issues, I work with people all the time. I never charge. I don't charge anybody anything. So
wow.
I'm here to help.
We need more people like you, Chris.
There are more people like me. We just got to find them.
There you go. Well, what do they say? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Is that
you're ready for the lesson that does appear that way? Yes. Yeah.
Well, man, thank you so much. I'm going to have you back on the show, Chris, for sure.
I would love to come back. Happy to help. Do what I can.
Thank you.
You let me know.